Behind the laughs of this beloved UPN sitcom about estranged half-sisters lay shocking secrets that fans never saw coming. From a tragic guest star murder that haunted the show to bizarre casting coincidences involving real-life musical connections, Half harbored mysteries that would make even the most devoted viewer do a double take. Get ready to discover the hidden drama behind those apartment building shenanigans. Fact 1. Fatal guest star appearance. One of the most chilling coincidences in Half and Half's history involves actor Merlin Santana, whose guest appearance on the show became tragically prophetic. Santana played Dante Al Dente, a young R&B recording artist who worked with Mona in her music industry job, appearing in the episode titled The Big Pimpin' Episode during the show's first season in 2002. What makes this appearance so haunting is that it turned out to be Santana's final television role before his life was cut short in a senseless act of violence. Just weeks after filming his scenes for Half and Half, the 26-year-old actor was shot and killed while sitting in a car in Los Angeles on November 9, 2002. The shooting happened in the early morning hours in the Crenshaw district, where Santana and his friend, fellow actor Brandon Quinton Adams, had just left a home recording studio where Santana was working on his first rap album. The murder was particularly shocking because it stemmed from a completely false accusation. A 15-year-old girl named Monique King had lied to her boyfriend, claiming that Santana had made sexual advances toward her. This fabricated story led to a planned attack by King's boyfriend Damian Andre Gates and his accomplice Brandon Douglas Bynes, who followed Santana and Adams and opened fire on their vehicle. The bullet struck Santana in the head, killing him instantly. Santana had been a beloved figure in television, best known for playing Romeo on The Steve Harvey Show and for his earlier role as Stanley on The Cosby Show. His Half and Half character Dante was mentioned several times throughout the series after his death, creating an eerie reminder of the talented young man whose promising career was tragically ended. The show's writers had to navigate the difficult situation of referencing a character whose portrayer was no longer alive, making every mention of Dante's name a somber tribute to Santana's memory. Fact 2. Musical family connections came true. In one of television's most bizarre coincidences, Rachel True discovered that her real-life musical taste had unknowingly connected her to her Half and Half co-star in the most unexpected way possible. True, who played the music-loving character Mona Thorne, had mentioned in interviews that one of her favorite music groups was Trinox, a relatively unknown R&B and hip-hop trio from the late 1990s and early 2000s. What True didn't realize when she made these comments was that Chico Beniman, who played her best friend and potential love interest Spencer Williams on the show, was actually one of the 3 members of that exact same group. Beniman had been part of Trinox since 1999, alongside fellow members Ramon Adams and Tony Brisby, and the group had achieved some notable success in the music industry before the show even began filming. Trinox wasn't just any random musical group either. They were legitimate recording artists who had been personally mentored by Will Smith himself. The trio appeared on Will Smith's albums Millennium and Born to Reign, and they contributed to major movie soundtracks, including Wild Wild West and Men in Black 2. Their most successful single, Black Suit's Common Nod Ya Head, even reached number 77 on the Billboard Hot 100 chart in June of 2002, right around the time Half and Half was beginning production. The strange coincidence meant that when True and Beniman were cast as close friends on the show, she was literally working alongside a member of a group she genuinely admired without either of them initially realizing the connection. This real-life musical link between the actors added an extra layer of authenticity to their on-screen chemistry, since Mona's character was supposed to work in the music industry and have genuine knowledge about R&B and hip-hop artists. The fact that True's actual musical preferences aligned so perfectly with her co-star's professional background created one of those strange moments where reality and television fiction intersected in completely unexpected ways. Fact 3. Age-defying family tree. Half and Half created one of television's most mathematically impossible family situations when it came to the ages of its main characters, with casting choices that completely defied biological reality. Valerie Pettiford, who played the glamorous and overbearing Big Dee, was supposed to be the mother figure to both half-sisters in the show's family dynamic. But the actual ages of the actresses made this relationship laughably unrealistic. According to their listed birth dates, Pettiford was born on July 8, 1960, making her only 6 years older than Rachel True, who was born on November 15, 1966. This means that Big Dee would have had to become Mona's stepmother when she was just 6 years old herself, which obviously makes no sense in any realistic scenario. The age gap becomes even more ridiculous when you consider that Pettiford was only 12 years older than Essence Atkins, who was born on February 7, 1972, meaning Big Dee would have given birth to her own daughter Dee when she was barely 12 years old. The show's storyline established that Big Dee was Charles Thorne's second wife, who had married him after he divorced Mona's mother Phyllis when Mona was a small child. For this timeline to work realistically, Big Dee would have needed to be significantly older than both daughters, especially since she was portrayed as a sophisticated, wealthy woman who had been married to their father for many years by the time the series began. What makes this casting choice even stranger is that all three actresses were clearly adults playing adult characters, so there was no attempt to disguise their ages or use makeup to create a more believable family dynamic. Pettiford, True, and Atkins all looked roughly the same age on screen, which should have made the family relationship seem odd to viewers. Yet somehow the show managed to make the dynamic work through strong performances and writing that focused more on personality conflicts than age-appropriate family drama. This age compression created a situation where Big Dee often seemed more like an older sister or cousin rather than a mother and stepmother figure. Fact 4. Apartment building geography glitch. Half and Half committed one of television's most blatant continuity errors when it came to the basic layout of the apartment building where the main characters lived, creating a geographical impossibility that somehow went unnoticed by editors and viewers for years. The mistake centers around Mona's apartment, which literally changed its physical location within the building between the pilot episode and later seasons without any explanation or acknowledgement from the show. In the very first episode of the series, when Mona decides to move into the apartment building where her half-sister Dee already lives, she specifically moves into the upstairs apartment that is clearly positioned on the right side of the building when viewed from the front. The pilot episode establishes this layout pretty definitively, showing Mona climbing the stairs and entering the apartment on the right, which becomes her new home where she'll live throughout the entire series. However, in later episodes when Dee decides to renovate Mona's apartment, something strange happens to the building's architecture. Suddenly, the exact same apartment that was previously established as being on the right side of the building somehow appears on the left side instead. The renovation scenes show Dee working on what is supposed to be Mona's apartment, but the physical location has mysteriously shifted to the opposite side of the building without any explanation or mention of Mona moving to a different unit. This wasn't just a minor camera angle issue or a subtle mistake that only eagle-eyed viewers might catch. The apartment literally switched sides of the building, which would be impossible in real life unless Mona had actually moved to a completely different apartment. The show never addressed this change, never showed Mona packing up and relocating, and never explained how her living space had suddenly teleported to the other side of the building. The error suggests that the production team either forgot the original apartment layout from the pilot episode, or they changed sets between seasons and didn't bother to maintain consistency with the building's established geography, creating a glitch that defied the basic laws of architecture and physics. Fact 5. Credit-swapping sisterhood. Half and Half broke new ground in television history by implementing a completely unique approach to opening credits that had never been tried before on any sitcom, creating what might be the most democratic star billing system ever devised for a television series. The show deliberately alternated top billing between its two leading actresses, Rachel True and Essence Atkins, switching their positions in the opening credits every single episode throughout the entire 4-season run. This wasn't a random occurrence or an editing mistake that happened occasionally. It was a carefully planned decision that the producers implemented from the very beginning of the series. In one episode, Rachel True's name would appear first in the opening credits, followed by Essence Atkins, and then in the very next episode, their positions would be completely reversed, with Essence Atkins getting top billing and Rachel True listed second. The credit rotation system was particularly unusual because it went against decades of established television tradition, where the order of names in opening credits typically reflects contractual agreements, salary negotiations, or perceived star power that remains fixed throughout a series' entire run. Most shows establish a hierarchy in the pilot episode and stick with that same order for years, making any changes to credit positioning a big deal that usually only happens when actors renegotiate their contracts or when major cast changes occur. By implementing this alternating system, Half and Half essentially treated both actresses as completely equal co-stars, giving them identical treatment and ensuring that neither Rachel True nor Essence Atkins could claim to be the show's primary lead over the other. This approach perfectly matched the show's central premise about two half-sisters learning to share equal space in each other's lives, with the credits themselves serving as a reflection of the characters' journey toward balance and mutual respect. The decision also meant that over the course of 91 episodes, both actresses received top billing for roughly 45 episodes each, creating a mathematical equality that extended far beyond just the storylines and into the actual business and presentation aspects of the television series itself. Fact 6. Title: Formula Obsession. Half and Half holds the distinction of having one of the most obsessively consistent episode naming patterns in television history, with every single episode across all 4 seasons following an identical title format that never varied even once throughout the show's entire 91-episode run. From the very first pilot episode to the final series finale, every episode was titled using the exact same structure, the Big Blank episode, where the middle word would change to reflect the specific storyline or theme of that particular episode. This rigid naming convention meant that the show's writers had to come up with creative ways to fill in that middle word while staying true to the formula, leading to episode titles like The Big Pimpin' Episode, The Big Condemnation Episode, The Big Birthquake Episode, and The Big Frozen Assets Episode. Some titles were straightforward descriptions of the plot, while others involved clever wordplay or puns that connected to popular culture references, songs, movies, or phrases that would resonate with viewers. The consistency of this naming pattern was remarkable, considering that most television series either use completely different title formats for each episode, or they start with a pattern and eventually abandon it as the show evolves over multiple seasons. Many sitcoms begin with themed episode titles, but gradually move away from rigid formulas as writers gain more creative freedom or as the show's tone shifts over time. What makes Half and Half's approach even more unusual is that the pattern continued through cast changes, different directors, various writers, and shifting storylines without anyone ever deciding to break the mold or try something different. The show maintained this naming discipline through episodes that dealt with serious topics, comedic situations, holiday specials, and season finales, proving that the production team was completely committed to this particular brand identity. The big episode format became so associated with Half and Half that it essentially functioned as a trademark of the series, making it instantly recognizable to fans, and creating a sense of familiarity and consistency that helped establish the show's unique voice in the crowded landscape of early 2000s television programming. Fact 7. Pre-fame movie connection. The incredible on-screen chemistry between Rachel True and Essence Atkins that made Half and Half so compelling wasn't actually created during the casting process for the sitcom, but had been developing for years before the show even existed, thanks to a previous collaboration that most fans never knew about. 2 years before they were cast as estranged half-sisters learning to bond, True and Atkins had already worked together as co-stars in a romantic drama film called Love Song that was released in 2000. Love Song was an independent romantic drama that also featured singer Monica in a leading role, creating a small ensemble cast that allowed True and Atkins to develop a working relationship and professional friendship well before Half and Half entered production. The film gave both actresses the opportunity to work closely together and establish the kind of natural rapport that would later make their sisterly dynamic on television feel so authentic and effortless. This prior collaboration meant that when casting directors were looking for actresses who could believably portray half-sisters with a complicated relationship, True and Atkins already had a foundation of mutual respect and understanding that translated perfectly to their new roles. They didn't have to spend time during Half and Half's early episodes figuring out how to work together or building chemistry from scratch, because they had already gone through that process during the Love Song production. The fact that they had previously starred in a romantic drama together also gave them experience working in emotionally complex scenes, which proved valuable when Half and Half required them to navigate the complicated feelings between Mona and Dee Dee as they moved from resentment and suspicion toward genuine sisterly affection. Their earlier film work had already taught them how to play characters with layered relationships and conflicting emotions. This pre-existing professional relationship likely played a significant role in why Half and Half's central dynamic felt so natural and believable from the very first episode, giving the show a head start that many sitcoms don't have when they're trying to establish chemistry between their lead actors during the initial season. Fact 8. The cliffhanger that never ended. The series finale left Mona choosing between two love interests but cut to credits before revealing her decision, creating one of television's most frustrating unresolved cliffhangers when the show was canceled. Fact 9. Will Smith's protege connection. Chico Benimon brought legitimate music industry credentials to his role as Spencer Williams that went far beyond just acting, thanks to his real-life connection to one of the biggest stars in entertainment, who had personally mentored him years before Half and Half even existed. Benimon wasn't just pretending to understand the music business for his character. He had actually been discovered and developed by Will Smith himself as part of an R&B and hip-hop group called Tranox that achieved genuine commercial success in the late 1990s and early 2000s. Tranox wasn't just a local group that got lucky with a few small gigs. They were serious recording artists who had been personally signed to Will Smith's own record label, Overbrook Entertainment, also known as Westbrook, where Smith took an active role in developing their careers. The group consisted of Benimon alongside Ramon Adams and Tony Brisby, and they worked directly with Smith on multiple high-profile projects that gave them significant exposure in the entertainment industry. Their collaboration with Will Smith resulted in appearances on two of his major studio albums, Millennium and Born to Reign, where Tranox provided vocals and featured prominently in the production. The group also contributed to soundtracks for some of Smith's biggest blockbuster movies, including Wild Wild West and Men in Black 2, giving them access to millions of listeners who might never have heard their music otherwise. The most successful result of their partnership with Smith was the single Black Suit's Common Nod Ya Head, which became a legitimate hit on the Billboard Hot 100 chart, reaching number 77 in June of 2002, just as Half and Half was beginning production. This meant that Benimon was simultaneously appearing on television as Spencer, while also having a song on the radio charts as part of Tranox. This real-world music industry experience gave Benimon an authentic understanding of recording studios, music executives, and the business side of entertainment that perfectly matched his character's role as someone who worked closely with Mona in her music industry job. Fact 10. CBS Studio Center Facade. Half and Half managed to convince viewers for 4 entire seasons that they were watching the lives of two half-sisters navigating their relationship in the beautiful city of San Francisco. But the show never actually filmed a single scene anywhere near the Bay Area throughout its entire 91-episode run. Every moment of the series, from interior apartment scenes to exterior shots of the building where Mona and Dee Dee lived, was created entirely at CBS Studio Center located on Radford Avenue in Studio City, which is part of Los Angeles, over 300 miles south of where the story was supposed to take place. This complete reliance on studio filming meant that Half and Half never took advantage of San Francisco's iconic landmarks, distinctive architecture, or unique geography that could have added authentic flavor to the show's setting. Unlike many television series that film establishing shots or occasional scenes in their supposed locations to create a sense of place, Half and Half committed fully to the studio approach, building all of their sets on sound stages and using carefully controlled lighting and backgrounds to suggest the San Francisco atmosphere without ever leaving the Los Angeles area. The decision to film everything in Los Angeles was likely driven by practical and financial considerations, since CBS Studio Center provided all the necessary facilities for a multi-camera sitcom production, including sound stages, editing rooms, and production offices all in one location. Filming in San Francisco would have required the entire production to relocate, which would have significantly increased costs for transportation, lodging, and local crew hiring, expenses that a network sitcom budget might not have been able to accommodate. The studio-based approach also gave the producers complete control over lighting, weather, and scheduling, since they didn't have to worry about San Francisco's famous fog, unpredictable weather patterns, or the logistical challenges of filming in a busy urban environment. However, this choice meant that Half and Half missed out on the visual authenticity that could have made the San Francisco setting feel more genuine and distinctive, instead creating a somewhat generic urban apartment building environment that could have been located in any major city. Fact 11. The near-miss Season 5. Half and Half came heartbreakingly close to continuing for a fifth season, with the show actually making it onto the CW network's initial programming lineup for the fall of 2006, before being unceremoniously dropped at the last minute due to a series of complicated business decisions that had nothing to do with the show's quality or popularity. The near renewal created one of television's most frustrating what-if scenarios, especially considering that the show had ended its fourth season on a major cliffhanger that left fans desperately wanting to know what happened next. When UPN and the WB networks merged to create the CW in 2006, Half and Half was initially considered a strong candidate for renewal because it had been UPN's second most watched series, trailing only behind Girlfriends in the ratings. The show had a loyal fan base, solid performance numbers, and a proven track record of delivering consistent entertainment that appealed to the CW's target demographic, making it seem like an obvious choice for the new network's programming schedule. The problem came down to contractual obligations and business relationships that had been established before the CW officially launched. The new network found itself legally required to pick up Reba, which had been a commitment carried over from the WB, while they also faced pressure to renew All of Us and to greenlight The Game, which was being developed as a spin-off from the successful Girlfriend series that was already moving to the CW. These contractual and strategic commitments created a scheduling puzzle that ultimately squeezed Half and Half out of the lineup. Despite the show's strong performance and the fact that it had initially been included in the CW's early planning documents, the decision was particularly painful for fans because it meant that the fourth season finale's cliffhanger, which showed Mona choosing between two love interests but cutting away before revealing her decision, would never be resolved. The cancellation represented a perfect storm of business factors rather than creative failure, leaving Half and Half as one of the most successful shows to be canceled, not because of ratings or quality issues, but simply because there wasn't enough room on the schedule. Fact 12. Co-star wedding performance. The bond between Essence Atkins and Valerie Pettiford extended far beyond their fictional mother-daughter relationship on Half and Half, reaching its most touching expression when Pettiford took on a very special role during one of the most important days of Atkins' real life. When Atkins married her husband Jaime Mendez in September of 2009, 3 years after Half and Half had ended, Pettiford didn't just attend the ceremony as a guest, she actually performed live entertainment at the wedding reception, bringing her professional singing talents to celebrate her former co-star's new marriage. The wedding took place on September 26, 2009, at the Ambassador Mansion and Gardens in Pasadena, California, where Atkins wore a stunning Stephen Urich gown for the elegant ceremony. Atkins had met her husband through the online dating service Match.com on Valentine's Day in 2008, and their relationship had developed over more than a year before they decided to tie the knot in this beautiful California venue. Pettiford's decision to perform at the reception was particularly meaningful because it demonstrated how the professional relationships formed during Half and Half had evolved into genuine personal friendships that lasted well beyond the show's cancellation. As an accomplished Broadway performer and recording artist who had released her own jazz album called Hear My Soul in 2005, Pettiford brought serious vocal talent to the celebration, making Atkins' wedding reception an even more memorable and special occasion. The performance also highlighted the unique family-like dynamic that had developed among the Half and Half cast members, with Pettiford essentially stepping into a maternal role at Atkins' wedding, much like her character Big Dee Dee had done throughout the television series. This real-life expression of care and support showed that the on-screen relationships between the characters had been grounded in authentic affection and mutual respect between the actresses themselves. The wedding celebration also included salsa dancing. As Atkins and Mendez had taken dance classes together in preparation for their special day, adding another layer of joy and entertainment to an event that beautifully blended personal milestone with professional friendship. Fact 13. Second-place success syndrome. Half and Half achieved the unusual distinction of being one of television's most successful shows that somehow never quite broke through to mainstream cultural recognition, despite consistently ranking as UPN's second most-watched series throughout its entire four-season run. The show found itself in the peculiar position of being extremely popular with viewers and delivering solid ratings week after week, yet it never achieved the same level of cultural impact, media attention, or lasting legacy as Girlfriends, the show that consistently held the #1 spot on the network. This runner-up status was particularly frustrating because Half and Half was performing exceptionally well by any reasonable television standards, maintaining steady viewership numbers that would have been considered successful on most other networks. The show ranked 4th overall across all of UPN's programming, which meant it was beating the vast majority of other series on the network and attracting millions of loyal viewers who tuned in regularly to follow the adventures of Mona and Dee Dee. However, despite these impressive numbers, Half and Half somehow failed to generate the same kind of buzz, critical attention, or pop culture references that Girlfriends enjoyed during the same time period. Girlfriends became a cultural phenomenon that spawned countless discussions about relationships, friendship, and modern Black womanhood, while Half and Half remained more of a quietly successful show that entertained its audience without breaking through to broader conversations about television or society. The disparity between rating success and cultural impact created a strange situation where Half and Half was simultaneously one of UPN's biggest hits and one of its most underappreciated series. The show earned multiple NAACP Image Award nominations for Outstanding Comedy Series and received individual nominations for several cast members, proving that it was being recognized within the entertainment industry for its quality and performance. This second-place syndrome meant that when UPN folded and the CW had to make difficult decisions about which shows to continue, Half and Half's lack of cultural cachet may have worked against it, even though its ratings and loyal fanbase should have made it an obvious choice for renewal. Fact 14. The tarot card career pivot. Rachel True made one of Hollywood's most unexpected career transitions after Half and Half ended, transforming from a television actress into a professional tarot card reader who eventually built an entire business around mystical practices that connected directly to her most famous film role from over a decade earlier. In 2017, True was working as a tarot card reader in Echo Park, a trendy neighborhood in Los Angeles, where she offered personal readings to clients who wanted spiritual guidance and insight into their lives and futures. This career change wasn't just a temporary experiment or a side hobby. True took her tarot practice seriously, and developed it into a legitimate professional endeavor that combined her natural intuitive abilities with years of study and practice in various mystical traditions. Her approach to tarot reading went beyond simple fortune-telling, incorporating elements of spiritual counseling and personal development that helped clients work through difficult decisions and life transitions. The connection to her past became even more obvious when True decided to publish her own tarot deck and guidebook in 2020, releasing True Heart Intuitive Tarot, Guidebook and Deck as a complete system for people who wanted to learn tarot reading for themselves. This publication represented the culmination of years of professional practice and study, showing that her interest in mystical subjects had evolved from a movie role into a genuine calling and expertise. The career pivot was particularly fascinating because it brought True's life full circle back to her breakout role in the 1996 cult classic film The Craft, where she had played Rochelle, one of 4 teenage witches who used supernatural powers to deal with high school problems. That movie had established True as someone associated with mystical and supernatural themes in popular culture, and her real-life embrace of tarot reading seemed to fulfill the spiritual interests that her character had explored on screen. True's transition from mainstream television to alternative spiritual practices also reflected a broader trend of former entertainers finding new purposes and audiences in wellness and spiritual communities, where her celebrity background actually enhanced her credibility rather than limiting her opportunities. Fact 15. Netflix's 2020 revival goldmine. Half and Half experienced an incredible second life nearly 15 years after its cancellation, when Netflix made a major acquisition announcement in July of 2020 that brought the show to an entirely new generation of viewers who had never experienced its original run on UPN. The streaming giant acquired the rights to 7 classic black sitcoms in a package deal that included Half and Half alongside other beloved series like Moesha, Sister Sister, Girlfriends, The Parkers, and One-on-One, creating what essentially became a treasure trove of early 2000s nostalgia programming. The Netflix release created an immediate cultural phenomenon as fans who had grown up watching these shows rushed to relive their favorite episodes, while younger viewers discovered Half and Half for the first time and quickly became invested in the relationship between Mona and Dee Dee. Social media exploded with discussions about the show as people shared their favorite moments, debated character decisions, and introduced friends and family members to series they had missed during the original broadcast years. However, the Netflix availability also reignited one of television's most frustrating cliffhangers, as new viewers experienced the same disappointment that original fans had felt back in 2006 when the series ended without resolving Mona's choice between her 2 love interests, Chase and Lorenzo. The final episode showed Mona calling one of the men to tell him, "I finally know where my heart is. You're the one I want to be with." But the scene cut away before revealing which man she had chosen, leaving viewers hanging forever. The cast members themselves acknowledged the renewed interest in the show, with several of them creating a special video message for fans, expressing their gratitude for the continued love and support that Half and Half was receiving on the streaming platform. They spoke about how honored they felt that the show was still making an impact and connecting with audiences years after it had originally aired. The Netflix success proved that Half and Half had been ahead of its time in many ways, dealing with themes of family, identity, and sisterhood that resonated just as strongly with 2020 audiences as they had with viewers in the early 2000s.